The story of Vitaly Romanovich Semenkov. A frontline pilot, he served throughout World War II. Senior lieutenant, squadron commander, then regiment commander. Awarded 4 military orders. 2 orders of the Red Banner, the Order of the Red Star, and the Order of the Patriotic War. I was born in the Far East in 1918 in the village of Frolovka, near the mining settlement of Suchin. My parents actively participated in the partisan movement during the Civil War and were closely acquainted with Sergei Lazo. My mother often carried me in swaddling clothes, hiding his directives there when important papers needed to be delivered from Vladivostok to Suchan. On my father's side, I had a grandmother, Pelageya Vasilyevna, who was a serf in her youth. Later, she and my grandfather moved to the Far East in search of a better life. My father was intelligent and persistent from childhood, but his fate was not easy. During his school years, he received a state scholarship for academic success, but he did not get along with the priest who taught the law of God during the final exams. When the priest hit him with a ruler, my father could not stand it and retaliated. A scandal erupted, and my father had to flee. First, he ended up in Donbass, then wandered through southern Russia, regretting only that he did not meet Gorky. When the First World War began, he went to the front as a volunteer and returned after being wounded with 3 St. George crosses. Soon the revolution broke out, and my father went to the Far East where our new life began. I vividly remember the first time I saw an airplane. It was a hot July day, and I was lying in a cornfield sent by my mother to gather grass for livestock. Suddenly, a plane soared over the field. It was a miracle that captivated my soul. Later, we moved to Sakhalin, where my father found work in the fishing industry. We spent summers in Rybnovsk, and in winter I studied in Alexandrovka. From early childhood, I was drawn to weapons. At 11, I almost lost my sight when a cartridge exploded right in my hands. That was when I first understood how close danger could be. For half a month, doctors worked to restore my vision, and fortunately, I recovered. This incident did not deter me. On the contrary, it pushed me even harder to connect my life with technology in the sky. From early childhood, I aspired to the sky, and over time this fascination only grew stronger. An aero club appeared in our district, where we initially built model airplanes. I remember how we made a Po-2 model at a 1/10 scale. This plane became a symbol for a whole generation of pilots, and our model participated in all demonstrations. Later, we started flying gliders, and it was then that I finally realized my life would be linked to aviation. After finishing high school, I dreamed of entering an institute, but the Komsomol District Committee sent me to mass labor projects. I ended up as a warehouse manager at the Oktyabrski mine near Alexandrovsk, where coal was extracted. But nearby, a gliding club, a branch of the Aero Club, was operating. I was invited there as the head of the training department, and I concurrently flew the Po-2, accumulating about 40 hours of flight time. Over time, I became the chief of staff of the Aero Club. In 1939, our Aero Club was closed, and I was transferred to the Amur Regional Aero Club at Koibishevka Vostoknaya Station. From there, I was soon sent to the Ulyanovsk Flight School for instructor improvement. We were officially students of the school, retaining our salaries, and my 700 ruble salary allowed me to support my family comfortably. So I continued my training, and it was there, in Ulyanovsk, that the war found me. From that moment, my life changed completely and irreversibly. When the war became a reality, our school was transformed into a military academy. We began to master the I-15, and in December we took the oath, becoming cadets of the military academy. At that time, one incident particularly stuck in my mind. Together with Captain Chazov, we received a mandate signed by the chairman of the Council of Ministers. This document allowed us to select and confiscate collective farmlands for future airfields. We sailed along the Volga to the headwaters of the Kama, and in 10 days identified several suitable sites for basing aviation. While we were returning by steamboat, the first German raids thundered over Moscow. Around July 10th, we were sent to the Serpukhov School at Undal Station to receive planes and depart for the front. But the cadets of the first graduating class who had arrived there earlier went to war instead of us. We remained idle, losing time. A week passed, then another, and still no order to deploy. I couldn't stand it and sent a telegram to the Kremlin, directly to Comrade Stalin. We, a group of pilots, are sitting in school doing nothing, while battles are raging at the front. A few days later, an order came to form a separate flight group on the I-15. On August 1st, we took to the air and flew to the vicinity of Bryansk. But as we approached the airfield, we witnessed a German raid. Explosions, smoke, and destroyed parking areas. We dispersed in the field, then were transferred to Alakino. Fighting in the I-15 was difficult. 4 rifle-caliber machine guns seemed like ridiculous weapons against German aircraft. We flew ground attack missions against railway echelons, but often returned scattered, without proper coordination. In less than a month, we lost almost all our planes and people. Only Pasha Dubovsky and I remained alive. My plane was taken by Senior Lieutenant Romanov, and Pasha and I were left without aircraft. Thus began my war, with despair, losses, and the first steps towards harsh trials. When we were left without aircraft, an order came to proceed to Shakovo, near Mtsensk, to receive Il-2s. We arrived there, but it turned out that we had no certificates for monetary and food provisions. The situation became dangerous. Alive today, you might be gone tomorrow, and no one would look after your family. We approached a senior officer, and he allowed us to go to Serpukhov to arrange the documents. In Moscow, we met, picked up our personal files, and agreed to return to the front. But the Germans had already cut the road. As we approached Mtsensk, our train was shelled by Messerschmitts. We couldn't advance further. Orel was surrounded. The commandant directly said, "There would be no more planes there. Go back." We were once again without direction. In Zhukovsky, we were sent to Murmansk. We traveled via Arkhangelsk, then along the railway under construction to Belomorsk. En route, we were caught by German aviation. The train was bombed by Junkers 88s. Explosions, shrapnel, blood. People died right before our eyes. My friend Pasha's face was disfigured by glass fragments, and the border guard captain next to us had his head blown off. I dragged Pasha into the vestibule, and we jumped into the ditch. The ringing in my ears stayed with me for life. Few from our carriage survived. Later, the train was pulled forward, and the wounded were bandaged right in the camp infirmary. I still remember a girl with an abdominal wound who died on the stretcher as soon as she was lifted. This was my first true encounter with death even before the front. Thus, through blood and the demise of fellow travelers, we reached a mixed aviation division commanded by Colonel Golovnya. We were assigned to the 147th Fighter Regiment, but we couldn't stay there long either. On the eve of November 7th, we were transferred to the 145th Regiment, armed with I-16s, and we began a new chapter of the war. In the 145th Fighter Regiment, we flew I-16s, covering Murmansk. Initially, we didn't encounter the enemy in the air, only relocated from one airfield to another, Shongai, Afrikanda, Belomorsk. My first real combat engagement occurred on the Kirov Railway. Junkers 87s tried to bomb the bridge. I attacked but couldn't reach them. Later, Pavel Stepanovich Kutakov, the future Marshal of Aviation, participated in that very battle. That's when I first saw Laptezhniks live. Soon we were transferred to Monchegorsk, then to Murmansk. There we first received foreign equipment, Hurricanes. They made a poor impression. Weak armament, vertical maneuverability was useless. But it was on them that my first serious battle took place. We flew in pairs, one attacking, the other covering. The Germans poured out of the clouds and a dogfight ensued. Before my eyes, Alexei Klobostov rammed a German Messerschmitt. First with one wing, then, already damaged, he crashed into a second. And the flight commander Poznyakov didn't turn away from the 109 and died in a head-on ramming. I myself was also going to ram when I ran out of ammunition, but the enemy escaped. This battle was a real test for me. We lost our commander, saw comrades burn, but the enemy also felt our resolve. After that battle, I realized that there was no turning back, only forward to new clashes. After the first real battle, a series of skirmishes began, each of which could have been the last. We covered Murmansk, the Toloma hydroelectric power station, and the Kirov Railway. In one of the battles, I found myself face-to-face with Messerschmitt's 109 for the first time. We flew in pairs, and suddenly the Germans swooped down from above. A dogfight ensued. One attacks, the other covers. I tried to reach a Junkers and fired rockets, but missed. Later, Kutakov still wondered where the anti-aircraft gun had come from. In Murmansk, we retrained on Hurricanes. The plane turned out to be heavy, weakly armed. But it was on this plane that I had my first serious aerial combat, where Pozhnikov died and where Klobostov twice rammed the enemy. We lost the best, but the Germans also felt the blow. I remember a battle when I flew with Goncharenko and Kitty Hawks to the Lina Kamari area for reconnaissance photography. On the way back, a pair of Messers caught us. Maneuvering a Cobra or Yak was one thing, but a Kitty Hawk was heavy. I managed to shoot down the leader, but the wingman got on my tail and damaged the controls. The plane went into a dive. The elevator wouldn't respond. The canopy jammed. I tore at it with my hands until I ripped it off. I bailed out at the last moment, landing in a swamp. For the first few seconds, I thought I had landed among the Germans, but they were our artillerymen. They picked me up and took me to the division commander. Only then did I realize how thin the line between life and death was. Such moments accompanied us constantly. Death nearby, the screams of comrades on the radio, burning planes. But each time we returned to battle, because not only the railway or the bridge depended on us, but the lives of the people behind us. In March 1943, I found myself in a hospital in Monchegorsk. Concussions and overexertion were taking their toll. Before this, Kompanechenko and I were chasing a Heinkel 111, and during the pursuit, I felt unwell. Speech disturbances, nervous tics, and weakness began. Doctors sent me to the Central Hospital in Sokolniki. They examined me for a long time and decided to give me time to rest. I was sent to a rest home in Vostryakovo, a former Morozov mansion. There I witnessed how Alexei Marasyev, who had lost his legs, stood up again on prosthetics. I saw how doctors taught him to dance, and this sight became a lesson in courage and fortitude for me. For several months, I lived between hope and doubt. Would I return to duty or be permanently discharged? Sometimes it seemed that the illness had receded, but with excitement, my speech would falter again. However, in the summer of 1943, I managed to return to aviation. I hadn't flown for almost half a year, and this time coincided with the difficult months of the Kursk-Orel operation. But I was back in action, and the feeling that fate had given me a second chance only strengthened my resolve to continue fighting until the end of the war. Returning to active duty, I took command of a squadron, then became the regiment's assistant navigator, later deputy commander, and soon after regimental commander. The responsibility grew, and with it the weight of decisions. Now I was responsible not only for myself, but also for dozens of young pilots whose lives I had to save and whom I had to teach how to fight. We constantly covered railways, bridges, and hydroelectric power stations. The Germans tried again and again to break through, especially in the area of the Kirov main line, but never succeeded. I flew various aircraft, Hurricanes, Kitty Hawks, later Cobras. The Hurricane was heavy, clumsy, almost useless in vertical combat. The Kitty Hawk already allowed for decent skirmishes, but it was the Cobra that became a real breakthrough for us. Maneuverable, with powerful armament, this aircraft gave us a chance to meet Messerschmitts on equal terms. In battles, we adhered to a simple rule. The main thing was to protect each other. That's why our individual scores were small and our group victories were significant. Personally, I was credited with 5 downed aircraft, but as part of a group, we destroyed 33. It didn't matter to us whose name would be in the report. We fought so that the enemy would not break through, not for stars on our shoulder straps. It was often necessary to escort attack aircraft. This was the most difficult task. They operated low, slowly, and we had to protect them from fighters and anti-aircraft guns. The battles were fierce, but retreat was never an option. So day by day, the war took its course. Every sortie could be the last, but we continued to fly because we knew behind us was the country. Behind us were people who needed to be protected. The war was not only an endless series of sorties, but also a continuous pain from losses. The day of March 13, 1943, is especially hard to remember. That day, the Germans blocked our airfield, and the command decided to send a squadron into the air, directly into the attack. One after another, planes caught fire on takeoff. 6 people died before my eyes, and Dmitrik and I miraculously survived. It was a sight impossible to forget. The burning torches of machines, the deaths of comrades whom I had embraced just yesterday. Death always came suddenly. That's how my friend Klobostov died, not returning from a mission. That's how Fomchenkov disappeared, burning in the air while covering attack aircraft. He was initially listed as missing in action, and there was even a rumor that he had defected to the enemy. Only later did reconnaissance confirm his death. I remember him as a brave and honest pilot, and it's a shame that the name of a hero of the Soviet Union was clouded by such rumors. It was especially painful to receive letters from the mothers of fallen comrades. I still remember the letter from the mother of Ivan Yushchinov. He was considered missing in action, and his mother did not receive benefits. Only when a school search party found his plane did she write to them, "Thank you very much. I can finally breathe now. I've come alive. That you've removed the stigma from my son." These lines are impossible to read without tears. We knew. A pilot flew off and didn't return. It meant he was no longer there. Reports stated missing in action, but for us, it always meant one thing: death. The best were lost. Poznyakov, Bochkov, Dubovsky, many others. Each of them left a wound in my heart that will not heal until the end of my life. And yet, despite the bitterness of losses, we continued to fly, because their deaths should not have been in vain. The war was not just about sorties and battles. Between missions, we had our own life, harsh but real. We lived in dugouts, and I always demanded that they be clean. No bugs, no flies, no fleas. Everything cleaned and washed. When we occupied a new airfield, the first thing we did was to tidy up, and the women armorers and mechanics helped with this. Cleanliness was our refuge from the chaos around us. Supplies varied. We were fed porridges, pasta, cod, and cod liver. Of course, there were no fruits. Instead, we were given pine needle infusion. Our emergency rations included American chocolate and cola, and small packages with dry rations and homemade rockets were tied to parachutes. Sometimes there were cases of theft. I remember one mechanic who stole my belongings: trousers, a duffel bag, everything I had. He was sent to a penal battalion to atone for his guilt with blood. But overall, our technicians were reliable. Without them, we wouldn't have gotten anywhere. There were women in the regiment, one armorer per plane in each squadron. Romances happened, but within reasonable limits. 2 were sent home due to pregnancy, but there were no quarrels or scandals. Everyone understood that the front demanded discipline. In our free time, we played volleyball and football, held competitions. My squadron even won the divisional cup. We sang songs, joked. Sometimes girls from Murmansk came to the regiment for dances. Even there, where death and explosions were all around, we remained human. We took losses hard. In the evening after a battle, we might gather, drink a glass, and remember our comrades. But for fear to paralyze or for someone to say, "He died today, I'll die tomorrow," that didn't happen. We just knew every day could be the last, and we had to fly while alive. That's how we lived, between sky and earth, between death and rare moments of human warmth. Over time, I became a regimental commander, then entered the academy, and after the war served as a senior inspector in the Air Force. During the war, I received 4 orders: 2 orders of the Red Banner, the Order of the Red Star, and the Order of the Patriotic War. Awards were given reluctantly, and we were used to it. For us, the main thing was not the number of orders, but that we remained alive and completed our mission. I always believed that war is not a job. It is the defense of the fatherland, a sacred duty. To talk about it as work is blasphemy. My father fought in the First World War. My brothers also fought. One graduated from aviation school, but before the front, he crashed during a test flight. He miraculously survived but remained disabled. Another brother died in the infantry. I am still indebted to him, as I never managed to find his grave. The fate of many of my comrades was tragic. Some died in battle, some went missing in action, some burned in the air. The names of the best are immortalized in street names and in the memory of those who survived. And we, those who returned, always knew we are alive because there were people like them beside us. I remember every takeoff, every loss, every battle. And if I am asked what war is, I will answer simply: it is the defense of the motherland. It is the price we paid for us to live and for those who will come after us to live.